welcome to another episode of Film Lovers.
I'm Tim Schumacher.
I'm Shannon Fletcher.
We are lovers of film.
And lovers of one another. This week is a double holiday feature.
Technically, we did watch two movies within the same genre this week. So it's a first for us for both watching Christmas movies and two movies in one podcast. So our double feature is festive. For anyone looking for Christmas movies to watch, we may have some recommendations for you. And like I said, these are both Christmas movies, basically the same movie. Very similar themes.
Not true. Yes, these are both holiday-specific films. Both came out this year, I believe. Yes. So I would recommend both of these films, too. We each picked one movie for this week. I picked Happiest Season, which I had recommended to me by a couple people, including my sister. And Tim chose Fatman.
Starring Mel Gibson in a movie that I was conflicted about paying for in the first place because it involves Mel Gibson. But I believe the movie makes up for it in some other ways. And he is actually very good as a grizzled Santa. He's the perfect grizzled Santa. If you want a grizzled Santa, you should call Mel Gibson.
Right. He does make a pretty great Santa.
Mm-hmm. Grizzled, specifically.
Specifically a grizzled Santa. All right, let's start with Happiest Season because we watched that first. I was supposed to look up a little
synopses.
I am in charge of synopses. Happiest Season.
And so for those who have not heard of Happiest Season, this movie stars Kristen Stewart.
Yes.
K-Stu is how Shannon refers to Kristen Stewart. And it was news to me, but it makes sense.
I love Kristen Stewart.
It has Alison Brie, Aubrey Plaza, fairly star-studded cast for what it is.
Eugene Levy's son, who's hit it really big in the last year. And Mackenzie Davis as well. It's
a big ensemble cast, and I think the trailers for it really market this as a rom-com. And to me, this is actually something I wanted to talk about. It really feels more like a drama. Like there's very little calm in the calm part of this.
Daniel Levy is pretty funny.
He is.
As the sort of wise.
He steals every scene that he's in.
He does. He is essentially the same character as he is in Schitt's Creek, as far as I can tell. I haven't seen a lot of Schitt's Creek, but he's a very funny, wise, sassy gay.
Except in the one scene where he pretends that he isn't. And his impression of a hetero man is funny. Also really funny.
Very funny.
Yeah.
Okay, the synopsis of Happiest Season is a young woman with a plan to propose to her girlfriend while at her family's annual holiday party discovers her partner hasn't yet come out to her conservative parents. It's essentially a gay twist on the classic, going home to meet the parents story. With, of course, the holidays being a central, that's the moment they're in. That's the theme. I really liked this film. Do we want to do hot takes? Do you have a hot take?
I have a hot take in that it is a great 2/3 of a movie. Because the last act of this movie feels like it was glued on from a different movie. I think it has some real interesting takes on how to handle a partner that has not come out to their parents. And there's a lot of conflict in this movie that makes sense and is resolved in pretty logical ways until the last act. And it feels like a different movie after they cross this threshold, and it's strange. It's kind of tonally inconsistent, but the performances are great. Daniel Levy's hilarious. Kristen Stewart is great in it. I mean, everyone is really great in this movie. I think it's the acting really carries this, but the story just is kind of confusing in terms of confusing in the sense that it, like I said, the tone shifts. Yeah. It just swerves at that part. And when my hot take also, I guess I kind of alluded to it, is that this isn't really a comedy movie. Like they have a few jokes in the beginning. There's the two leads try to climb on top of a roof in kind of a romantic sense, and they get chased off by a festively dressed dominatrix and her sub who is wearing a reindeer mask. And it's hilarious at the time, but we don't get a lot of like comedy until later in the movie. That's why I think it's more of a drama, and it's an interesting drama. But like if you're expecting like a rom-com like Wedding Crashers, not Wedding Crashers, Bridesmaids, it doesn't make a point of making you laugh in every scene.
Yeah, I think they're more interested in developing characters and having those characters kind of change and grow than they were just kind of getting the same laughs.
I think it's a more interesting movie because of that, but I think the trailer sells it more as this, they're alluding to Schitt's Creek just by having Daniel Levy in this and making every scene seem like it's funny. But the trailer doesn't do justice to how well it explores the relationship between Abby and Harper in this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Abby is
It's a more serious movie than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it was more serious than I thought it would be too. Abby is Kristen Stewart's character, and Harper is her girlfriend, who's played by, I had it up just a second ago, played by Mackenzie Davis. Mackenzie is the person who has not come out to her parents yet. And my hot take is this movie, if it were me, it would have been over in the second scene.
You screamed dump her.
I screamed dump her
dozens of times. More than one dozen.
Yeah. Probably 20 times throughout the film I yelled dump her at the screen. This relationship... just like the things that K-Stu puts up with for her not that hot girlfriend, if you ask me.
Yeah, you
I don't think they're a good match. I really like Kristen Stewart, and just did not really like the character or the lady she was matched up with in this movie. But generally, as a sort of strong, independent Scorpio woman, I just would not have put up with this shit for very long.
Is she also a Scorpio?
K-Stu? Good question. I don't know. I'll look that up.
We can look that up.
I don't think her character was. I think this character is a little too damaged to see how shitty she was being treated and to turn that into... to be fair, spoiler alert, she plans on proposing to this girlfriend. Oh, actually, that's in the synopsis. That's not a spoiler.
That happens pretty early in the movie, too.
Yeah.
I don't know if but I kind of wanted to examine whether this relationship is abusive. I mean, so Harper tells Abby that she has not come out to her parents yet.
Yep. In the car on the way.
In the car on the way in the middle of nowhere. So Abby has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And it's important
if it were me, I would say, I'm going to drive you the rest of the way to your parents' house, and then you're going to spend this Christmas with them and not with me, and I'll pick you up in a few days.
I love the fact that when Abby realizes how badly she wants to get out of the situation, she pulls up an app, and the app is called Rideshare. It's not a rideshare app. It's not Uber or Lyft. She specifically pulls up an app called Rideshare.
Yeah, you have to pay Uber or Lyft potentially to have them in your movie.
I'm surprised they didn't use that for product placement or something.
Maybe I don't know.
I just thought it was funny. If you're thinking of a fake name for a rideshare app and you just say rideshare, I thought that was a good gag.
Well, it's on screen for a second. Yeah. It made sense.
I thought it was funny.
But yeah, it's $1,000 ride home. So she's kind of stuck there. Eventually, Daniel Levy comes to rescue her and drive her home, and then, hijinks ensue. I do think that this movie has a lot of strong ingredients in it, though. Every character is pretty well thought out and well developed and interesting. In the end, in that third act or that final act where things, like Tim said, it felt kind of pasted on, they all act out of character. Almost every person at the end of this film acts out of character. And it's supposed to read as growth, but it just reads as illogical, happy ending. Everything gets tied into a bow that is too pretty to be believable. And that's kind of a flaw. But in general, this movie was, it's a great, heartwarming holiday watch for sure.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more diverse than your average Christmas movie like this is. The fact that the main couple is gay, and then there's 2 people of color in the movie, but
and they make out.
They do make out.
They make out. Yep.
But they show a blended family and a gay couple, and I don't know, just it's about how tough. I think the title Happiest Season is sort of a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing where it's like, it's only happy if you live a certain kind of life and you are in a certain kind of family that's accepting of you. I think highlight of the film is Daniel Levy's character does give a very wise and mature speech about being gay and how, like, it's wrong to judge other people who haven't come out to their parents, because you don't, just especially when you had an easy coming out. Abby, the character, Kirsten Stewart's character, had a pretty easy time coming out to her parents when she was like, I don't know, 16 or something. And then she's sort of considering dumping her girlfriend for refusing or being too scared to come out to her parents at such an older age. And Daniel Levy has this wonderful speech about, like, we really shouldn't judge our fellow queer people because, you know, their story's different than ours, their situation's different than ours. I don't know. I did still yell dump her after the speech because I think that in spite of the fact that she didn't have a good family situation, which, like, ends up, like, spoiler alert, her parents are totally fine with her being gay. And it's, in an almost unrealistic fashion, they're fine with it. But she's so terrified of it. I think she has a lot of internalized homophobia. And
absolutely.
It plays out in every scene. And gosh, yeah, just like what she put her girlfriend through over the course of these few days, and even all the suspicions she had about her girlfriend, was to me a recipe for it. Like, I would have dumped this woman and I would not have stuck this relationship out myself.
Yeah, I mean, it is revealed that Harper lied to Abby because Harper told Abby that she had come out to her parents over the summer. Yeah. And it's December now, and she springs the fact that she didn't actually do that. Again, in the car in the middle of nowhere. That's pretty, yeah. I mean, that's the moment. Like, that would have been the end of the relationship, I think. Yeah, and there are other... Or at least the end of the trip. The end of the trip, and then there are other things that I think would have signaled that maybe the relationship should end. I mean, there's a part where she, Harper meets her old boyfriend, who also does not know that she is gay, I think. Yeah, nobody knows. And I don't know. I thought the movie was going to go in the direction of her actually hooking up with this guy and then them figuring out what they should do, if she's actually bi and not fully gay, or just, I think the story is that Harper is maybe bi, or she's I think it is, but using bisexuality to continuously hide her true self or something. Yeah, and just be more okay with her parents. And that's kind of something that you and I talked about this a little last night, that this movie came out in 2020 and presumably, I mean, I don't think it takes place in 2020 because no one's wearing masks in stores that people can just go into and buy things. Yes. So it's a bygone era of better things when you could just go out in public without fear of probably catching a deadly virus. Well, they probably... my point being that it's a modern movie. Filmed the movie over a year ago. It's probably filmed in 2019. So yeah. I'm going to say that this movie takes place in 2019 and not 2020 for that reason. But the reason that Harper is anxious about coming out to her parents, that she gives... And I think it's implied that this isn't the real reason. She's just not comfortable being herself. The reason that Harper gives is that her father is running for mayor of, I believe, Pittsburgh. It's hard to tell. I think that Harper and Case do live in Pittsburgh. Yes. And the family lives in another city. Yeah, and like far enough to be 2 hours away, or for a rideshare home to be 2 hours away. So long. Yeah. Or so, to be $1,000. I mean, there's plenty of big-ish towns in Pennsylvania it could be. But my point being that her father is running for mayor, and she doesn't want to come out to embarrass him. And that sounds ridiculous. It's so ridiculous in 2019. It sounds in 2019. This whole plot belongs in like 1994. Absolutely. And the thing is, one of the big donors that the father is chasing, when she finds out that Harper is gay, she says, "All right, we can just have a don't ask, don't tell thing," which again, 90s language, but also like, what donor is offering to donate contingent on the mayor's daughter, who, I mean, she has a column in the Pittsburgh newspaper.
Yeah, she's a writer.
I think, I mean, she has something of a high profile, but I can't think of a politician who, if their child came out as gay, for like the position of mayor, that it would seriously jeopardize their chances.
Even mayor of New York City, I mean, come on, like what?
Or, I mean,
the first family is not that high profile in a mayor.
Yeah. And, even if this was, more conservative parts of the country, I still don't know if it would matter that much. I mean, we're past the age of Dick Cheney having a daughter that's out, and it just seemed strange that A, Harper's anxious about it, and B, that anxiety was validated when the donor threw that out. And in the spirit of the heartwarming nature of the movie, that was
just an excuse. She was not cool with who she was.
Yes.
And she didn't want to shatter the idea her parents had of her.
Yeah.
Harper was like, quote unquote, the favorite. I would like to talk about the family dynamic as well. Harper has two sisters. I think they're both younger. It's kind of hard to tell. She's by far the tallest.
No, Allison Brie is the oldest, because they said that she was the eldest. Yeah.
Yeah, so Allison Brie, whose character's name is Sloane, is this super cold, like very intelligent older sister character who has two children and is also hiding a secret, and that secret is that her marriage is over. But she and Harper have this vicious, competitive relationship, and it's supposedly all for like winning the approval of mostly dad, but it's both parents. And then the youngest sibling is just kind of like desperate for feelings of belonging in the family. She's kind of overlooked. She's sort of weird. And the family kind of ignores her. And that dynamic is so fucking tense. Like it is, there are scenes where, and of course the whole thing culminates in like an actual fist fight between two siblings who are threatening to out one another in front of everyone with their secrets. During a big Christmas party. Yeah.
That's something that the movie, I don't know, like, I don't mean this as a criticism of the movie generally, but like the movie there's no point where these two parents are withholding affection from any of their children. And granted, they're adult children now. Yeah. So it's harder to do that. But if we had one scene like in Arrested Development, when we have Lucille Bluth, that off scene of like, I don't care for Job. We don't see we don't see anything about these parents being cold to their children once. And we're told over and over again that they don't love you unless you fit a certain image. And the only glimpse of that we get is when the mother is talking about her daughters. And how, so Sloane, for the movie, Sloane was apparently a fairly successful lawyer that went to Yale. And her mother rolls her eyes when she said that she left her job to spend more time raising her children and starting up her business. And granted, her business of customized gift baskets is, a little eye-rolly fine. But that's kind of the deepest look we get into the parents, like what causes them to favor a child or not.
Yeah,
I think that was supposed to be a bigger deal than it felt like.
There's a lot of subtext that maybe you missed. Okay. There's a lot of mother-daughter stuff that's happening here. Like, the first thing the mom says after she hugs Harper is like, "You brought concealer, right?"
Oh yeah.
Just like little comments. Yep. I think that the premise is solid. Like, they aren't great parents. Yeah. They're super self-absorbed. They're very very focused on this mayoral race, and the kids are 100% treated as props within that mayoral race. And if they don't have the cosmetic, like, there's this whole plot point about getting a family photo that the mom approves of enough to post on her husband's mayoral campaign Instagram. Like, they're very I don't want to say vapid, but they're people who are very obsessed with their image. So the anxiety of coming out in that situation is valid, but also in the year 2019. It's quite the stretch.
Yeah, and not only the year, but how old is Harper? We think mid-30s?
Yeah, like maybe late 20s.
Late 20s,
I don't know, they're about to
mid-30s.
get engaged.
Right.
But they're also lesbians.
Well,
who are notorious for, like, taking relationships too far too fast.
That's what I was going to say. We know that they live together, which means they could have either been together for years or, like, 3 months.
So, at one point, Casey says, I moved in 6 months ago.
Oh, that's right.
To a family member. And so you know that they've been living together for about 6 months.
Yeah. So they've been dating for at least maybe like 6.5 months. We know that for sure.
Yeah, there is like a running joke about lesbians moving in together, like within a month of knowing one another. So it's totally possible. I have a question for you. Have you ever dated someone who was radically different around their parents or a certain friend group than they were around you and like the friends that you shared with them?
You're saying other than you.
If you think that about me,
I do not think that about you. No. I've never dated someone like that, but I've been friends with people like that. That are just way different around their family and their other friends that aren't me. I think that's because I am a stranger person. So if you want to interact with me, you have to come down to my level. Fair.
I think that is... like, that's kind of the key main red flag for me with this Harper character is that she's one person with Abby in their hometown of, I believe, Pittsburgh. They have a bunch of gay friends. They have, a life together there. They live in this very cool loft sort of apartment.
Yeah.
She's a writer. Sounds like she's very, like, has her, thumb on the pulse in terms of, like, politics. And that's partly her dad's influence.
Yeah, I mean, they never mention what party their dad is running for, but...
oh, it's clearly a more conservative role.
Yeah, I mean...
but then she goes back home, and she's surrounded by, her parents and the political infrastructure around them because they're, running a campaign. And then her friends from high school, her ex-boyfriend, or did they say husband?
I thought maybe husband.
It was confusing what their relationship really was. Clearly, he was going on family trips and stuff.
I thought I heard husband, so I don't know how long that lasted.
So there was like a blonde man who her parents love, who was back in the picture. And she is very different. She laughs at different kinds of jokes.
And she laughs harder than she does, like, around other people.
Yeah, there's a fakeness that comes out in Harper when she comes home. And I did think that was like a really relatable issue that people have when they're meeting, or they're like, when you show a loved one your family home or your hometown, or you introduce them to a group of your friends who they've never met, it's your job, like, to be a good host and to make sure that they always feel comfortable and that you're paying just as much attention to them as any other person in the room, because like, they came out of their comfort zone to come see a different slice of yours, or like, like meeting someone's family is not fun. It is, this was like a days-long trip where Abby had to sleep in a basement.
Yeah, it's a hostage situation.
No
She's
privacy,
not only...
and like the lack of compassion and the lack of like assuming her needs and taking care of them on Harper's part kind of made me, the whole time I was screaming dump her at the screen, like, this girl is not taking care of you.
Right.
And that's what she doesn't deserve that ring. I don't think she was acting like it. And I don't know. They end up together in the end.
Yeah, and that's the confusing part.
It is very confusing. Because everyone kind of acts out of character.
We don't see a lot of their relationship when it's good. In the beginning of the movie, we see that they live together and they seem to like each other. And we have that moment when Harper convinces Abby to come up on the roof of the house. That, which is cute. But we see more of the bumpy parts of their relationship than the good parts. And that kind of makes Kristen Stewart's decision to propose to her a little more confusing. Yeah. But I think it's implied that if Abby, Kristen Stewart, is buying this ring, getting excited about it, that things were going well. We just don't see a lot of it. Yeah, we don't. And I don't know, Dan Levy's character doesn't seem to be all that into Harper either.
as Abby's partner.
Does he seem to be into anything other than tracking people? This man has a mission, and it's tracking people via their cell phone location. He kills one of Abby's fishes.
Yeah.
He gets his therapist to take care of her pets when Abby, I think, paid him to take care of her pets. He's a very efficient narcissist, and he's very amusing. But I don't think he's not just like not jazzed about Harper. I don't think he could be jazzed about anything that doesn't affect him personally.
Maybe he is a good friend to Abby in the end by driving 2 hours to go rescue her.
Yes. But that's because he gets to track her.
I suppose, yeah. And it is a fun, dramatic situation.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, we do not see a ton of evidence that they were in a super healthy relationship to begin with.
Right.
I do think though we're given a couple clues about Kristen Stewart's character Abby. Her parents died when she was 19. She's a lesbian. There's a couple ingredients there that kind of make for someone to maybe overlook the flaws of their partner because they're kind of, she's desperate to have family, and to establish something good and steady for her home, I think. Mm-hmm. So she's overlooking some major flaws, some really bad partner behavior goes on, and it's little things, but then also the whole trip. I mean, it's just a really big shitty thing to put your partner through. And yeah, I was screaming, dump her all the way around. Really I did cry in the end though. It was when she does come out to her parents, it's a big moment. She cries a lot. You kind of can't help but cry with her. I've obviously been in a similar situation, so I just related way too much. But yeah, after that, literally every character acts out of character, and it ties itself up in a very pretty bow so that it has a happy ending, and it's just it's tough to believe. Even within inside of the universe of this movie, it's tough to believe that everyone acted the way they did. Mm-hmm. And especially the sisters who had hated one another for years and years and years kind of all made up at the end, which just felt I don't know, you both betrayed each other.
Right.
Why give this sister suddenly a second chance? She was terrible to you.
Right.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of the movie, though, was the storytelling that they did through Aubrey Plaza's character.
Yeah, me too.
Aubrey Plaza was the ex of Harper in high school, and was really Harper's first lesbian romance. And that resulted in some love letters that Aubrey Plaza wrote to Harper's character in high school, and those letters being found. And Harper outing Aubrey Plaza and saying that she was obsessed with her, and that Harper is not a lesbian, but Aubrey Plaza's character was. Aubrey Plaza is now either a doctor or in med school. I don't remember which it was.
Yeah, I think she's a resident.
But I think we see a lot of Harper's parents' character there, because they talk about Aubrey Plaza in a different scene where they say, oh, so much potential wasted with her lifestyle choices.
That's true.
And that does tell the viewer what the parents think about homosexuality.
It does.
That's doing a lot of work. And the backstory that we hear from Aubrey Plaza telling this to Abby, I think was an interesting way to really highlight what Harper's actually thinking. And I mean, it's not painting her in a good light. It's establishing a pattern of behavior that goes on well before this movie, and gives us a better reason for why Harper might not only want to come out, but be comfortable being a lesbian in general. It's not just, I mean, she's got some of the internalized homophobia from her parents. She's not totally comfortable being a lesbian even to herself, is kind of what it seemed like. This was high school, and people were shitty in high school generally.
Yeah, she's living a double life.
That's what I mean.
I imagine you have to lie. If you're living with a girl for 6 months, your parents are going to ask about your life. You're actively lying.
Yes.
To both parties, a lot. And there's a scene where Aubrey Plaza and Abby are talking about that, and Kristen was like, which girl? I don't know who I'm dating anymore. Is it this girl, or is it the girl I know from home? And Aubrey Plaza kind of says it's both. She's living two lives.
Yeah, and she's doing that by choice. She's been doing that for years.
That's exhausting, and it's so, I don't know, she's just a really dishonest character. I yelled dump her at the TV.
So many times.
And I stand by that. I don't think, I mean, it's an artificially happy ending for a movie called Happiest Season.
Yes.
It makes sense, but also wouldn't have made the same choice.
Huh.
Nope.
So would you give this movie a not happy ending? Would you have it end with like Kristen Stewart driving home with Daniel Levy and then like maybe cut to a scene 6 months later where Abby is in a healthier relationship with someone who's out and she like sees Harper and just like flips her off or something?
I don't know.
Do you think this movie deserves a not happy ending?
It would have been really interesting, and I do think that maybe the writers were going in that direction, and then some executive was like, sorry, no.
That's kind of what I felt like.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like the connection. So Dan Levy's character is a book agent, and Jane, the youngest sister in this family, is writing a book.
She's been developing her own...
It's like a fantasy.
I found this interesting
YA.
because as someone who writes a Dungeons and Dragons campaign on a weekly basis, I can relate to having a world in your head that's only in your head and is strange and confusing to other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that they hook up at the end and like put out a book together. That's great. I think that's a fantastic way to end their storyline.
Yes, that triumph was absolutely deserved. That character deserved to win.
Yeah. The dad doesn't end up becoming mayor. Spoiler alert. And that's probably for the best. It doesn't seem like he had his life on track there. Yeah, they do kind of hint at like, oh, are Aubrey Plaza and Abby gonna end up together?
That's kind of where I thought the movie was going, like doing what's like being in the relationship you deserve to be in. Felt like a theme that was being developed, and then
they were both kind of wronged by the same girl. Yeah, I kind of have a feeling that's where the writers were taking it, and then maybe there was a switcheroo that happened. What would I have done?
I feel like that would have been a better movie. Like, I would have liked this movie a lot more, not just because of my vindictiveness and desire to see people in pain.
Yeah, it would have been really great if Harper had lost Abby but gained her family in the process. Like, she still wins something in the end. And, like, sorry, but none of your behavior was that of someone in love. None of it.
Exactly.
None of it. If you've ever really loved someone, you don't act like that. You just don't. So... I think
you don't trust your partner enough to tell them that you're not out to your parents. You spring it on them when they can't back out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's borderline
just
abusive.
Like letting her be talked to at the way she was throughout the movie.
Right.
That's not what you do when you actually love someone.
Right.
So I do think that's what I would have done. I would have had that relationship end. Abby maybe falls into the arms of Aubrey Plaza, or maybe they just become friends and like. Yeah. She spent some time single for a while or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if the message of the movie is being out and doing what's best for yourself, Abby and Harper don't have to end up together for that.
To totally happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I think that maybe would have been a bit stronger.
Yeah,
and more believable.
Because then you can have
you do get. I will say this: you get a very action-packed climax.
Yes,
like there's a fist fight scene.
I think Alison Brie was cast because of stuff like that.
She's very well cast. I think she does a great job being this like cold, bitchy, competitive sister who eventually they make up in the end. It's not very believable, but
Well, one of the interesting things for me is that Alison Brie's characters are generally like. Either like Annie in Community, she's super organized and kind of cutesy, and that there are some episodes where she's really cutesy and some episodes where she's more administrative and authoritative and just really type A. And in this movie, there's no hint of anything other than being this type A go-getter, overachiever, and she excelled in it. I mean, she was very good at being very cold,
bitchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely worth the watch though. It was funny in some parts. It's not a super comedic film, but it was funny enough. Well cast. Tons of good like famous there's a couple of cameos by Ben de la Creme and Jinx Monsoon. Some of my favorite drag queens. There's some good cameos and like a pretty strong cast and a very climactic ending. Or, there's a climactic climax. Like tons of action, a lot of energy and emotion is flung around. And it does have a happy ending, which most Christmas movies kind of try to do. Speaking of most Christmas movies
that also have a happy ending.
Sorta.
So I just want to say, so I heard of the movie, and this is, we will revisit the Happiest season, but I do want to segue into Fatman here because I think it's a good place to do it. I heard of this movie Fatman on the True Film subreddit a few weeks ago and hadn't thought much of it. And then after we watched Happiest season, did we watch the trailer for that a few days ago?
Yeah.
The timeline of that.
My sister recommended it to me.
Happiest season.
Yeah, Happiest season. And then we watched the trailer.
When you Google Fatman movie, one of the first Google results is Fatman a real movie? And I think if you watch the trailer, you can understand why that is one of the top results.
It totally feels like an SNL movie trailer spoof. This trailer. The concept is like, it's super edgy, right? You have this shitty little rich kid hiring a hitman to kill Santa Claus. That's the synopsis. That's the synopsis of the movie. I don't need to say much more than that because that tells you how crazy this movie is going to be. Crazy premise, but really well done.
Really well done. And unlike Happiest Season, I would argue that this movie is very tonally consistent. My hot take in this movie is that this is my new favorite Christmas movie, and my hot take is that it's the way that it's a new take on Santa that deserves to be told.
Yeah. Yeah, my hot take is pretty similar too. Aesthetically, this is one of my favorite Christmas movies. Like, I love the way they've built, like, the North Pole as a grittier, more industrial place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Santa as, like, a rugged mountain man who lives kind of semi off the grid in, like, northern Canada.
Alaska. He's in northern Alaska. Yeah, because we see him cross the border from America into Canada and then Canada into Alaska.
That would make sense. Okay. Yeah. So he's in northern Alaska, and this movie just like living life like Americans in Alaska do, you know? Like, he drives a red Ford pickup truck and it's kind of rusty and he wears a Carhartt jacket everywhere and he's got like the steel-toed boots and he just like, I think the aesthetics of kind of working class rural America mixed with the Santa story was such a good blend. And it really, really made for a great setting for this film.
And then this movie also answers the question, what if Santa was a military contractor?
Yes.
A question I've been asking for most of my life. I mean, this man owns some substantial means of production.
Yeah, it's like, what if Santa were actually real?
Right.
A real person
faced with real budget constraints.
Yeah, who lives in the capitalist world and who does not have magic, but just has
he's got some
skills.
Amount of magic.
There's something.
He's not shooting fireballs or flying, but like he survives more than I would be able to.
But there's no glitter.
Right.
There's no, he does not fly once in this film. Santa just drives around in his pickup truck largely and like walks around.
Right.
He's clearly like immortal. Like he talks about 1910 as being a great year.
Yep.
And like, okay. So he's clearly got something extra, but it's like, let's strip out the fairy tale from this and make it as realistic and as like, I don't want to say modern, but as down to earth as we possibly could make the Santa story.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that relaxes from his day job by shooting cans in his backyard. If you don't have video games, this is what you do.
He has a punching bag strung up in the stable, and he has this sort of like Rocky Balboa getup he puts on to go like punch the punching bag.
He's got the sweatshirt over himself.
Yeah,
he's got grit.
He wears a beanie.
He's a guy that runs a factory and cares about his workers and wants to keep everything going because one elf, spoiler out, there are elves in this movie. Then an elf just says, giving keeps him young. Yeah. And this is a man that wants to be among his workers. He wants to understand what they're going through. He wants to keep everyone happy and working. And, he's not abusing or ripping anyone off. We talk about this existing in a capitalist world, and I think he kind of resents that. I think the elves like working.
Yeah, and Mrs. Claus, who is the hero of the story.
Mrs. Claus, played by Marianne Jean-Baptiste, is incredible.
She's incredible.
She really is.
She is totally his rock. Mm-hmm. She is a baker and a knitter and has some of the Mrs. Claus tropes, but is a strong ass black woman with a British accent. And there's a big community of them in northern Alaska. Right?
Yeah.
She and Santa are clearly in love, and they've been together for a really long time, and you get that vibe of oh, my partner of a really long time is going through a hard time, and I have to be there for them. And the sort of tug of war that happens between two people. I really thought their relationship was admirable.
That's what I was going to say. I think these actually worked out as two good movies to contrast against each other. Because
they did. It's a really healthy relationship and a really not healthy relationship.
That's what I mean.
That's so funny.
And Fatman, the relationship points are totally earned. Both of these people deeply care for each other.
Yes.
And to the extent of Mrs. Claus blowing a man's head off with a shotgun. Uh-huh. And it's awesome and deserved and in the moment needed to be what happened and a real thing that happened in this very real movie that feels like a fever dream.
It does. I mean, it both does and doesn't. It's very believable. It's if Santa was a real person, he'd be kind of a factory foreman type of dude who lives in rural America and and
what I said about
how would the letters get to him? They kind of thought that out.
Yep.
He has a P.O. box in Anchorage or something.
He has a P.O. box that certain people know about.
Yeah.
Not everyone working for the post office knows even how this works, but if you get up high enough, the chain of command at the U.S. Postal Service is harboring a scarlet secret, and that is the location of Santa Claus himself, which
No, they're not. It's a P.O. box for that reason.
Well,
so that nobody actually knows where Santa lives.
Right.
Eventually, the hitman gets there, and it's bloody.
And I love this hitman character because he's bloodthirsty in a way that I think is cooler than how hitmen are usually portrayed. He's not cold. He does not hate his job. I mean, this is a man who
takes pride in his work.
He lives and breathes just sadism, just causing pain to other people, just coming to... And
his home had a little bit of American Psycho vibes.
Yes, he has, as you noted during the movie, he has a painting of his very hearse-like car.
Yeah.
Behind him when he's there.
It's funny, before he gets this job to kill Santa, he is a collector of items that Santa's workshop has made for children.
Yeah, and to be specific in this movie, all these items have made by Santa's workshop engraved in bronze at the...
Yeah, those little made in China stickers. Yeah. It's kind of the same idea, but it's a little brass thing that goes on the bottom of a toy. And he's a collector of them, and he pays people money for their gifts that they earned by being good, right? Which is kind of ironic. And it's a good... It's a little too perfect that he has this huge backstory with Santa before he gets hired to kill him, but of course. But it does kind of paint a picture of where things are at in society. They talk several times about how fewer and fewer kids are good enough to get toys, which is why Santa's numbers are so down. He's pumping out a lot more coal than he is toys, and that's kind of a problem. It's a problem for Santa financially, and then also it's kind of this societal problem that's going on.
Yeah.
But then you sort of have this weird, almost black market thing happening with Santa's toys, where this guy is a collector of Santa's toys and they're objects of value that he buys off of people, which is kind of interesting because these objects are made with love, and it's just kind of funny. It reminds me of the art world, how something that Vincent van Gogh made with nothing but something that's produced by a human so far away from capitalism.
Right.
Like, that guy didn't sell a single painting. He just poured his pain out onto canvases, his pain and mental illness. And now those objects are worth so much in the market. And how kind of fucked up that is when you think about it. It's sort of happening here with Santa's objects too, which is interesting.
I think there's some subtext about Santa resenting having to participate in capitalism.
Oh yeah. Mrs. Claus too, and they're people who are active altruists who have to live inside of a capitalist system.
Exactly, like Santa is, giving keeps Santa young. He really wants to spread joy, and money getting in the way of his ability to do that really bothers him. At one point, Santa gets offered this contract with the military, and he doesn't want to take it, so he calls a bunch of business owners to say, like, hey, you know my work. I've got a factory full of people. We can make something for you if you'd like, and we can do it efficiently, and that we're they're a great shop, right? And he gets turned down by a bunch of business owners who say, like, oh, I get my labor for pennies in Mexico or in China. The best part, the amazing line is, I can't compete with this child slave labor.
Which is funny because he's got this elf labor thing.
Well, I mean, the elf thing is interesting too, because it really sets up that this is the elf's main drive. They want to eat simple carbs, as they say in the movie. They want to eat as much sugar as humanly elfily possible, and they want to make toys. Those are the two things that make them happy.
I think that there's this subtext. It's totally unspoken throughout the whole movie that the elves are magical beings, and Santa is too, and they all kind of both produce and thrive on the Christmas spirit,
right? And on giving. Right? So they're all kind of sustained on this idea, but then they also have, like, bills to pay and, like, an electric bill and shit for their factory that they have to, like, make money for, right? And I think... and they make money through government subsidies. I mean, Santa isn't
They are subsidized by the government, which is totally... Santa has this one speech where he talks about how Christmas is the biggest economic boost on the planet. Like, it's worth $3 trillion worth of spending every year. And the subsidy is, like, of course, just a little fraction
a drop in the bucket,
of that.
I mean,
so the subsidy is
if anything, that felt like a reference to the U.S. government stealing Native American land and paying them pennies and
maybe
I
did think about that, but but yeah, he talks about that, and there's this weird sort of economic angst that the whole system is under the whole time, which is honestly very there's a big industrial vibe to Santa and the elves. They all operate a factory. It's not necessarily unionized, but like workers' rights are considered at this factory, and it's sort of got this American labor vibe to the whole thing. And then he does talk about labor in other countries and how children work in factories in China building toys, and how Santa hates that. And so there is this sort of like the economic pressure of like rural American sort of industrial life is definitely being talked about a little bit here. I think
it's
really cool. It's like
there's a lot going on in this movie about Santa with a gun. Like you really can't. This movie is entertaining if you do boil it down to Santa has a gun, and it is also interesting on many more levels than that. I mean, the character of the kid who hires a hitman to kill Santa in the first place is also surprisingly deep. This kid's got motivations. His dad is an absentee father who is, off vacationing.
He's spending Christmas in the Bahamas with his new girlfriend, which is funny.
And he gets his son just a teddy bear in a box. That's all he gets him. No card, no saying hi for Christmas. It's just like he grabbed a bear off the shelf of a gift shop, shoved it in a box.
Or like had someone send it.
Yeah, my point is that his father is putting no thought into raising him, and that's why at the end of the movie, when Santa comes to this kid to basically threaten him, as a child this evil should be. I mean, this child
Santa at this point of the movie has like many wounds, including he's lost an eye. So at the end he says, I've got my eye in you.
I've got my eye, because he only has one eye left.
But yeah, like he basically tells this kid, like, it's not all your fault, but also you've been a shit little kid, and I've got my eye on you, and like you better change things. And I imagine this child maybe does respond to it because he's so hungry for like a father figure in his life, and maybe Santa could be something like that.
Yeah, the closest thing he has to a parent is his very infirm grandmother who just has a desk full of medication next to her.
Who he's like skimming money from and stuff.
Oh, a lot of money. I mean, we're never told how much, but this hitman...
This little kid is like forging grandma's checks and stuff. So he's on the naughty list.
Absolutely, for great reasons.
Yeah, oh my god.
There's a scene where this child intimidates the student that won the science fair by having this hitman kidnap her, tie her to a chair, and then
they like lightly electrocute her.
I don't think they electrocute her. I think that he threatens to electrocute her.
Oh, okay.
Like he's got plugs hooked up to a 12-volt car battery and like knocks them together so that they spark in a threatening way. And yeah, those could stop your heart, but I think the implication is that he wants to torture the person that beat him in the science fair. Totally relatable, but most people don't act on it that way.
Yeah. Yes. The cool thing about Santa is in this movie he does have that like encyclopedic knowledge of like your moral history as a person. Yeah. So every person he encounters, he's like, he knows whether you made the naughty or nice list every year. Like, Santa essentially knows everything about everyone, which is interesting. He's not necessarily omniscient, but if he comes into contact with you, like, he'll reference things you did as a child.
Maybe he is omniscient. I mean, I
don't think he'd ever get shot if he would have known someone was on their way. I think Santa probably has a system where he reviews tasks on, or like things that you did, maybe on a schedule or something, because I don't know. Yeah, there's some interesting, like, just how big is this like mass consciousness that he seems to have about everyone. Like, he does have a book. The Naughty or Nice List is this big book that he carries around, and it's kind of unclear. Like, he must have to read it regularly or something, and maybe the book is magic. It's unclear.
The amount of magic in this movie is unclear, but I mean,
and it's never anything like there's nothing. There are no magical scenes. It's just kind of like there's an object here, and it seems to have importance. Yeah. Right.
We get this great scene, too, of him coming up to a guy in a bar and talking him out of cheating on his wife.
Yeah.
And we get a good idea of how Santa views morality in that moment. It's about honesty. It's about doing the right thing despite convenience. And I mean, he's a virtuous Santa Claus. He's not just jolly, but he has an idea in his mind of what good means, of what being on the good and not naughty list means. And I mean, that's more complicated than I think I've seen any Santa morality in any media involving Santa Claus. This really is just a triumph of storytelling and how deep they could dive into how Santa views the world, the things that Santa has to deal with, and the man that Santa wants to be both professionally and to his wife. There's a lot going on in Fatman.
Yeah, and he kind of has to deal with fame. Like, he holds up a piece of wrapping paper and he says, "This is what people think of me."
Yeah, he's frustrated at the caricature.
He has kind of like, he deals with his own masculinity a little bit because he's this cartoon to the world. And it's like this kind of fat, jolly cartoon.
Yeah.
And he doesn't necessarily like that image.
He is a guy. He has a punching bag. He shoots cans to blow off steam. Like,
he's
stealing his wife cookies when she's giving them to other people.
Yeah, they have a fantastic relationship.
Absolutely.
And he's flawed in the right ways to make him really believable. But then he's also Santa. Like, he's better than you.
Absolutely.
And that shows up. Santa does not save the day, though. It is very important that we know Mrs. Claus is the hero of the story. She saves the day.
She is.
And Santa. I think Santa has like a regenerative magic. Santa is stabbed. He is
impaled.
Santa is impaled.
This hitman, like he's is like
good.
close to like Batman levels of being prepared for the situation.
Yeah.
He's got several guns.
He's got the gear.
We're shown the scene of him going through a course where he has to pick up multiple guns and shoot targets, and apparently he
trains regularly.
He trains regularly. He breaks a guy's arm in Brazilian jiu-jitsu in an arm bar, a move that I have used on you many a time without breaking your arm. But this guy, when this guy realizes that he broke the other guy's arm, he's like, "Yeah, I broke it." Like he's psyched up about how much pain he's causing other people. We do get this glimpse of his arm that is just covered in cigarette burns.
Yeah, he was abused as a child.
He's heavily abused. The implication is that he didn't get toys for Christmas. He got cigarette burns on his arm.
Yeah, there is kind of a hurt people theme in this universe where Santa... It sounds like Santa weighs that a little bit when it comes to kids. Like, that's
why you're surprised when Santa comes back and just tells this kid to be good. I mean, he tells this kid to be good in a very good way.
This kid gets off pretty easy. I mean, he's definitely terrified of Santa. Santa's very scary in the end of this movie. Yeah. But I kind of thought the kid was going to get more than just this, like, slap on the wrist and please be better.
I think it was... I read it more as more than a slap on the wrist because in this kid's day-to-day life, there's no one telling him what to do. Like, he quote-unquote takes care of his grandmother, and otherwise he's got his office that he works in.
Most of the adults that he's around are his servants.
And no one's telling this kid what to do. So someone coming into your house... looking, like, showing you the bloody hole where their eye was and just telling you to be good or else. I mean, I'm not saying it's a punishment, but I made the comment that Santa is more about rehabilitation. He's not the American criminal justice system. He wants you to become a better person.
He does. Yeah. I guess he gives everybody infinite chances every year. You can either make the naughty or nice list. And I don't think you're standing.
I don't think anyone's ever on one list.
You get a blank slate every year with Santa. So I guess it makes sense for the character. Mm-hmm. I think this episode is kind of showing everyone how vindictive I am.
Well, this kid sucks.
This kid sucks.
I think
he's well cast too. His fucking face. You just want to punch this kid in the face.
This kid. Okay, do you think this kid is a reference to Trump at all? Because he's wearing the blue suit with a red tie. He's treating his servants like shit. I mean, he's smarter than.
He's way more intelligent.
He's smarter than Trump is.
Donald Trump has ever been.
I thought that the red tie specifically that is worn by this 11-year-old.
Yeah, he's always in a suit.
He's always in a suit with a red tie, talking down to other people. It felt like a Trump reference. Maybe I'm reaching here, but the kid sucks, and
the kid does suck.
The audience who is less perfect than Santa is absolutely will want this child to be punished heavier.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I wanted this kid's face stomped.
I'm not Santa. Shannon's not Santa. We want to see this. We see this kid get stomped, but Santa's better than that. He wants this kid to grow.
Yeah, he does.
He does.
That's an interesting. Does Santa like? Religion is not brought up.
Right.
There is no higher power that we can tell in this universe.
I'm really glad that they left any semblance of religion out of this.
Yeah, it's funny he does not mention the fact that the Catholic Church kind of took his holiday. Mm-hmm. You said that you thought that the eye patch was kind of an Odin reference.
Yeah, so Odin, the Norse god, is specifically one-eyed. I don't remember which part of the Eddas that he loses his eye in, but like Odin has an enormous beard. Mm-hmm. He has one eye. He's the father of all the other gods, so he's less physically imposing, but he is imposing just by being himself, just by having this booming voice and this enormous beard and one eye socket. I mean, it really felt like they were evoking the images of a powerful, booming Norse god whose wrath could come down on you at any moment. Yeah. But he's saying it's not going to come down right now because I'm giving you the chance for it not to. Like he has the vibe, for lack of a better word, of a potentially wrathful god in that scene.
Oh, yeah.
Because he essentially rose from the dead.
Santa is always kind of almost losing his shit.
Yeah.
I think, again, Mrs. Claus is his rock.
Yes.
She is definitely the moral compass, too, in Santa Claus's life.
Yeah, I mean, he's a grumpy old guy, and she keeps him grounded. You're Santa Claus. You can't let this get to you.
Right. Definitely a lot of that, like,
she is a great
judicious attitude comes from her. She's a good influence, for sure. Yeah, and she's so cozy. I love their house. Their house is full of like wood burning stoves and tea kettles, and she clearly has hand knit everything in the house. And they just live in this kind of like farm, cabin, ranch sort of place in Alaska.
It's
not above the tree line, so it's not like North Pole. Right. It's they have trees on their property. And then the reindeer are in the stable there. So it does seem like they have quite a bit of land.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just loved the aesthetics and like the vibe of the North Pole as well.
A few months ago, when you were looking for a cottagecore movie,
this is cottagecore.
This is cottagecore. If you're looking for a cottagecore and or fantastic Christmas movie, I'm recommending this movie. Yeah.
And it's not heartwarming in the traditional sense where, like, there's a big kiss at the end. I mean, there is, sort of. But it's heartwarming. It's like it has a good ending. Like, it has a just ending.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The ending in this movie was very earned. And the heartwarming doesn't come from, like, one scene where two people who have been fighting the whole movie kiss. It comes from Mrs. Claus blowing a guy's head off and then going to comfort Santa Claus, who has been presumably... I mean, the audience doesn't know the logistics of his immortality. I thought Santa was permanently.
Yeah, I thought he was done.
But she runs out after she kills this guy, and, there's no part of her that isn't worried about the love of her life. That's heartwarming when she runs out and picks him up and looks into his eye, and... I don't know if she cries in that scene, but the bond that, has been built this entire movie is just so strong in that scene that it's very heartwarming. Yeah. It's very romantic.
It is romantic. They have a great relationship. They do. And it's admirable. Yeah. He is an admirable person, so she, which is cool. Yeah. And it's great to give... I mean, Santa doesn't have much depth beyond, like, I judged children and give them presents based on my judgment, and I'm magic, and I'm jolly.
I'm magic and I'm jolly, and that's
kind of it. Like, we don't get a lot. Santa is not a very, like, human or relatable character in most of the stories told about him. And in this one, he's super flawed, he's super human. He is magic, but he has human flaws, and he has a strong, like, vision for what the world should be like, and what it is not lining up with that vision, and that's the source of his angst, which is the source of many people's angst. Very relatable. His moral compass is not reflected by the world around him. Very relatable. It's like, I think it's probably the best characterization of Kris Kringle I've come across.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, to anyone listening to this podcast, if you can think of a better movie that gives a deeper look at a character study of Santa Claus, you should comment on this video and tell us, because I haven't seen anything like this.
I think, like, it's happened where Santa's like a family man who's got stuff to balance in other movies, but it's never this deep. It's never so like global. His issues.
His problems are so relatable. Everyone right now is struggling with not getting payment from the government for some reason, and I feel
just that. With like the world's corruptness being
in the race to the bottom. If someone is using child labor, they can sell their products for less than you. So
and
what do you do?
There's really nothing we can do about that at this point, because there are no affordable like slave labor or just slave-like labor is so common, and it's well enough hidden where you can't help but participate in that system, being and a consumer in any country.
This movie very much, without saying it directly, discusses the problem. There's no ethical consumption under capitalism.
It does. Yeah. Right, and I think that's kind of why they decided to make Santa's artifacts, his like past toys, these like wonderful collector's items, because they do harbor this kind of bygone era of when toys were made by by people who cared about them. Like this, and it is a fantasy, this whole story of like, you know, when American factories really made things and like the people there had good working conditions and were paid well and you could raise a family on a factory worker's salary. And like there's this whole like, this fairy tale about the American dream that was like that, you know, post-industrial tech boom thing of idealized America that is kind of still happening in like the elves factory.
Yeah. The counterbalance against all of this is the fact that the elves actually want to make toys. Like that's something that doesn't exist.
And they're happy with their lives.
They're happy with their lives of specifically sleeping 20 minutes every 8 hours. Yeah.
They go into the workers' conditions a little bit, and it's kind of funny, but it's like, we've optimized our lives here.
Right.
And
they thrive under this, and there isn't a real world comparison to a select group of small people that need to sleep that little, only subsist on sugar. And that's because Santa's not real. Spoiler alert, Santa is not real as far as I know. But I think the theme is still very consistent of Santa really caring about these elves. They mention the fact that all of these elves their names are numbers based on where they're ranked, but they don't reuse numbers out of respect to the elves that they've lost. I mean, there's a lot of mutual respect. I thought that was kind of
odd. They are very efficient.
Yeah.
They're like...
I think it shows that Santa cares about his elves. Like, he cares about them enough that you're not just a worker. You're an individual who cannot be completely replaced. You're a person, and I care about you.
Yes.
You are not replaceable. You are a part of this team.
I think... the numbers thing is weird.
Well,
give the elves names.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. But the elves all have numbers, and they do care a lot about efficiency. They only eat sugar and carbs because those are very efficient sources of energy. And it's funny because they're very highly this elf factory situation is highly contrasted with the American military because they are contracted to build control panels for
fighter planes.
Fighter planes. And so there's kind of like almost a military occupation going on of the North Pole, which is funny. And then you kind of have like the, some captain in the military talking to the foreman of the elves about like what makes for a healthy, efficient team and like good teamwork and shit. And that conversation.
Sugar and sleep deprivation.
That conversation is really funny because you're like directly contrasting, the biggest human machine on the planet with this like little factory of elves.
Just little
Santa's
factory of elves. Yeah.
Santa's little army. Which is really funny. Tim, would you recommend this film?
I would recommend Fatman to every person listening to this podcast and encourage them to recommend this movie to people who have not heard our podcast. And then also recommend our podcast to those people because they should listen to it. That's my recommendation.
That's your take. Yeah. Tim and I, we are, again, in agreement.
On Fatman, yes. But
Fatman.
The thing about Happiest Season, to revisit the movie we talked about earlier in this episode, I don't know if I would recommend this movie. I think I'm going to say it again. The first 2/3 of this movie explore the intricacies of
going home to meet your girlfriend's parents.
Right, in a homosexual relationship when one partner is not out. That's a story that movie tells very well for part of a movie.
Yeah.
And it's deeper than I thought it would be. Like I said, the trailer for Happiest Season makes this seem like this cheesy rom-com, and it's more than that. It really is more than that. And I found myself enjoying the movie a lot and then being let down by the end of it. And I'm not saying that ruined the end of the movie for me. And I still liked the movie overall, but I think this is kind of how you felt about Hellraiser last week, where you're just not totally on board with the whole movie.
Yeah.
It does some cool things. It does some things that are deeper than other movies do them. And it's a standout in the genre. It's I think more of a drama than a rom-com, and it does a lot of things well. But I'm recommending Fatman to every person I talk to for the next however many weeks. That movie blew me away. I mean...
Did I tell you that Joey thought it was a ripoff of his holiday plays? His holiday plays were more of the Santa story as a noir detective.
But Santa's a noir detective? Or someone is a noir detective trying to find Santa?
Santa is a villain, I think, in Joey's universe largely. But I thought that was funny.
I mean, that's like how I thought Westworld was a ripoff of the short story that I published a decade ago.
Yeah, he was joking, too. But, you know what? I think my final take for... Just to wrap up, because we're like way over an hour now. I think that Happiest Season is like a great... You know, it's a great Christmas movie for this year and maybe next year, but it's kind of not going to last long. Like, I don't see this becoming a classic. Yeah. It's too... it would be a classic if it was made in, like, 2000. Like, if it was 20 years ago and this was actually a more common societal problem where... It's threatening to your father's political career to come out. Yeah. Like, the politics of this movie are kind of dated. It is dated.
That prevents it from being a classic for me.
Exactly. It has a lot of elements with expiration dates on them. For example, most of the stars kind of have expiration dates on them. I don't think Dan Levy's going to be a famous actor forever.
You don't think so?
Nope, I don't. I think he's like very much like having a moment. Okay. Same with Alice. I mean, maybe not Alison Brie.
Alison Brie's been in so much. Netflix has put her to work. And Glow, BoJack, Community. I mean, there's plenty of things that aren't things that I watch that she's in also.
She's in a lot of commercials. I don't know. Yeah. K-Stu is surprisingly has a great career and will continue to do so. But it's just kind of like this kind of feels like Hulu ordering up. Hey, I want a movie with Christmas themes. I want a gay couple. I want these things because those are ranking popular with this group of viewers right now. It is timely.
This is an optimized movie.
It's an optimized movie. This is a script
by Data.
It is. It was totally scripted by Data, and that's probably why they changed the ending because some Data changed or someone decided to change, the way they were looking at that data or whatever. So my final take is Happiest Season. Go ahead and watch it, but it's not going to become a lifelong favorite Christmas movie of yours. Fatman will.
Fatman will.
I could see us watching Fatman every couple of years, every Christmas, because we love it that much, and because it's a story that's not going away. Mm-hmm. None of the themes are current. They're timeless. They are chronic themes, I'll say. Like, the problems in the film are chronic problems that'll still be around when we're old people. Mm-hmm. And the relationship between the two of them will, I think, still be relevant especially when we're old and have been together as long as they have, or not as long, but you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
I think I could see us returning to that film again and again.
That movie, Fatman, feels like I felt watching Fatman the way that I felt when I saw Mandy for the first time, which is that I love it.
Tim loves Mandy.
It blew my mind. And they're different movies, but the thing with Happiest...
It's funny, though, because they're both movies that don't feel real. Like, really? You made an action movie out of Santa? Like, the trailer doesn't feel real. It feels like a spoof, but it's so much better than that spoof gives it credit for.
Yeah. Although the trailer did convince us to watch this movie. We both saw this trailer and we're like, we just wanted it. You see it and you're like, what? Like, I got to see how this works out, It's just so... It feels like such a crazy premise. Right. The analogy I would give for Happiest Season is that in strategy games, there's this idea where you can't make the AI too good because people will quit if they lose something significant. If they felt like they've been building something, if that's taken away from them, they'll just quit and not play anymore. That's what Happiest Season felt like. They built something really, really cool and more intricate than I gave the movie credit for from a trailer, and then they yanked it away with kind of a cheesy ending. So if you're
convenient. It was an ending of convenience. Yes.
If you're looking to watch a movie about a romance that's Christmas themed, Fatman surprisingly does it better than Happiest Season. Happiest Season does it well, but Fatman excels at it.
It does, and it's not, though, the story does not revolve around them, but their lives revolve around each other, in a big way, which is cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it for this holiday double feature episode of Film Lovers. I'm Shannon Fletcher.
I'm Tim Schumacher. We'll see you next week on Film Lovers. Mwah.